Good to go, Jane.
Thank you. All right, we're going to give it a couple more minutes and just see if we've got any other people tuning in, and then we'll get cracking at 10.
Probably should have an avocado to show, shouldn't I?
Do you want to run over and grab one?
All right, problem solved.
Fresh as you can get.
Except very, very unripe.
No one needs to know. Alrighty, it's 10 o'clock. So I think we're going to get cracking. Hi, everyone. My name's Jane. Welcome to this really special live National Ag Week Farmer Time event. I'm speaking to you today from Wathaurong country, so I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Before we get cracking, there are a few little bits of housekeeping that we need to attend to. So the first one is I would like to say a huge thank you to the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment for funding this project. The next one is, as we're filming this session, we ask that schools keep their cameras switched off, just so that we, don't get any faces in, and make sure that everything is all good to be uploaded so that future schools can access this recording. We also have an opportunity for students to pop some questions in the chat at the end of the session. So if students do have any questions, can they just hold on to them until the question and answer period at the end? And then we'll read through those questions. And if we don't have the time to answer all of them today, we will pop them in an email and send them out to you at the end of the session. We'd love to know how many students are joining us today and from which schools we've got tuning in. So if teachers have the opportunity to do so, we'd love for you to pop the name of your school and student numbers in the chat. And that'll just give us an indication of how long we can Q&A for. And it'll also give us the opportunity to send out some really exciting Producer Protector resource packs at the end of the session. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to pass over to our awesome avocado producer, farmer Steve Marshall. Thanks, Steve. Take it away.
Hi, thanks for that. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shoreham in Victoria. We're on the on what's called the Mornington Peninsula, which is about an hour south of Melbourne. Unfortunately, it's very cold here at the moment. It's not meant to be this cold. It's meant to be warm, but as I'm sure you're all aware, Australia's having a little bit of interesting weather patterns at the moment. So for us, we're pretty cold. It's meant to be sunny and nice, but we're actually very wet and cold. But anyway, we'll keep going with that. I'm here on our family farm, which grows avocados and also some wine grapes. My wife and our two kids live with us in one house on the property, and my mother lives in the other. I also look after two much larger farms in the surrounding area that also grow avocados. We also look after vineyards, olives, and a few other things as part of a contracting business that I run. But avocados are pretty much my passion and what I like to grow. And you can see a plantation behind me just over the shoulder there, and that's one of our blocks here on the home property. Now, we're not really known for growing avocados this far south. For quite a while, I was the southernmost grower until a good friend of mine started growing them in Tasmania. So I don't have that title anymore, but he's a good friend, and he was a grower from WA, and he decided that he could do it in Tasmania, and he's been pretty successful. So hats off to him. But for us, avocados down here are tricky to grow because we're right on the edge of where they like to grow. It's avocados are a temperate rainforest type of tree, so they're not really used to 40-degree days and dry northerly winds and cold, wet winters. So we're sort of pushing the trees fairly hard to produce fruit down here. But I've been doing it now for nearly 30 years. I'm still learning, and as we go through today, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I've learnt. We've made lots of mistakes along the way, but before we get going, I must confess one thing. I actually don't eat avocados. I actually do not like them at all. Everyone has tried every recipe for guacamole, but it's just not my thing. So for me, it's a texture issue. I don't sort of like gooey food, but anyway, everyone always finds that quite amusing that I don't like to eat them. So as you can see behind me, sort of, there's some of the trees there. We're currently in flowering, which is sort of why they look a little bit yellower over the top. We're about halfway through flowering, but the avocado tree is an evergreen tree. It doesn't lose its leaves. So they do change colours a fair bit during the year, depending on whether they're growing. As I said, they're slightly yellow at the moment, but that's because the colour of the flowering. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, avocados are used extensively for mainly, eating as a fresh product, but guacamole. We also see them put in dips. People also extract the oil, which can be used for frying and cooking. And also they end up in beauty products as well, and soaps. So very versatile fruit at the end of the day. And as I said, not really one that really interests me to eat, but luckily a lot of you out there love them and buy them, so you help us farmers out. Now, what do you need to grow an avocado tree? Well, they're a pretty fussy tree. They really, really like to have everything just right for them. I often say to people, you've got to get about 90 things out of 100 right to grow an avocado tree, and then 99 out of 100 things right to actually get fruit off them. So I get a lot of people ringing me up and asking, they've got a sick tree in their backyard, and you try and explain to them that they're not like a lemon tree. You can't just put them in and they're going to give you fruit. They have quite a few issues. So some of those main issues that they have is that they need really good drainage. They don't like sitting in water, and even within a day or two of sitting in water, you'll start to see the trees' leaves start to curl and have problems. But then on the other side of that, in summer, they need a fair bit of water to make sure that they don't stress out and lose their leaves, because their root systems aren't really efficient at getting water into into the tree. Their roots are almost like a bean shoot, and they don't have root hairs, which means that not having root hairs means that they can't actively pump water up into the tree. So they rely on the ground being moist around them, and that's what we try and achieve with irrigation. So we try and achieve for the tree the equivalent environment that it evolved in a rainforest environment. So not too wet, but just wet enough so that they have what they need. Also for us down here, we have a bit of a problem with sunburn in summer. We can go from a day like today where it's going to be about 20 degrees to 40, 44 degrees the next, and that stresses the trees. And then the sun can come in at the end towards the end of the day and tend to burn the exposed fruit. So what happens is that on a fruit here, and I don't have one to show you, but you'll get a whole blackening on that side of the fruit, and unfortunately we can't sell it. So that's one of our issues as well. But also, for instance, at the moment in the middle of flowering, cold weather is not ideal. So cold weather can really affect flowering, and I'll probably talk to that a little bit more as we go along. Our fruit is all harvested by hand, so we generally harvest in February. So we'll bring in a crew of pickers, and we'll pick the fruit, and then we'll take it over to one of our other properties where we have a big machine that washes the avocados and sizes them, puts them all in the same size, depending on how we program it. And from there, they get put into boxes, and from there the boxes get put on pallets, and pallets to trucks, and trucks to market. So most of our fruit goes to the Melbourne wholesale markets, and from there it's generally bought by the top fruit shops in Melbourne. We're very lucky. Over about the last 20 years, we've developed good relationships with those customers, and they know our fruit is high quality, and they generally ask for the fruit and start placing orders before we've even put it into the market. So we're very lucky with that. Sometimes my fruit, I've heard, has ended up in Tasmania. So we've ended up sending fruit to there. And once we ended up with fruit going to Hong Kong. Someone bought our fruit in the market and exported it. So I often joke that we accidentally exported, because we never planned to do it. But it was nice to know our fruit got there. We're not really the size to export. We just have our little spot in the Melbourne market that we fill. I'd like to get to that size one day, but there's a few limiting factors at play in that. So anyway, one of the main things that I've been asked to tell you about today is how we've used problem solving to be able to solve problems throughout our production system. But the one that I was going to talk to you about today was involving our packaging. So this is a typical avocado tray that has fruit packed in it. It's packed to 5.5 kilos of fruit, and you can have different sizes in here. You'll have, say, a count 20, which will have 20 fruit in here, and they'll be fairly large fruit. Or you'll have, say, a count 28, which will have 28 fruit in it, but they'll be a fair bit smaller to make up that 5.5 kilos. Now, one of our problems we had with packaging was that when we pick our fruit in February, no one else in the area in Victoria was picking avocados. So it was very hard for us to get the packaging that we needed at the time. And these packaging, this particular type of packaging, come pre-folded. So if you're buying a lot of these, you need to have a lot of space in your shed to be able to store them, and it's got to be really clean, because you can't, this is one of our old ones that said it's a bit dirty. You can't send fruit to market in dirty packaging. So what we then went and did was we worked out, oops, got all my props hidden down the bottom here. What we then realised was that with that packaging, we had a problem. We just couldn't store enough, and the companies couldn't get it to us, and it caused us a couple of times to have to stop picking fruit and stop our whole thing, which was definitely not ideal. And so we said, all right, well, how do we solve this? So we started thinking about what problems did we have with the previous packaging. Mainly storage. We also had problems that because they stack on top of each other 20 high on a pallet, if these corners aren't folded correctly by the machine, you end up with these towers leaning off, and you end up with unstable pallets that can fall over on the way to market. So that wasn't something, that was an identified problem that we had. So we then went and asked a few of the packaging companies for suggestions, and what we wanted to remove was the idea that it had to be put together somewhere else. We decided that we wanted to have packaging that we could put together ourselves. Now, the machines that fold those type of packaging up are very, very expensive, and I didn't really want to buy one of those because we couldn't justify it for our size. So we ended up coming up with this packaging. So this packaging is a little bit unique in that it actually, let's see if I can do it on camera, it comes flat and we fold it. So I'm undoing it now, but when I buy these, we get these delivered all stacked flat on a pallet. So you can sort of see that. And so when we went to design this, we knew that we wanted to have a flat pack because we knew that we could store more of them, we could assemble them when we needed them, and we didn't have to rely on a packaging company to send them to us. And as we started this process of figuring out what we wanted in the packaging, we realized that there were certain things we could improve along the way. So we originally got a prototype done, which was just to prove that we could pack it. And then some of the things improvements we made was that we were able to put more of our logo and things on there. this part of the packaging is designed to be removed and put in the store so that people can understand our story. Each one of these little avocado shapes has a little sentence about who we are and what we do. We're also able to make the packaging a lot stronger, which also meant that we didn't have that problem of the packaging falling over off the pallets. But we put that lot out for one season, and then we got feedback from our buyers because there were some problems with the packaging, and we thought we'd solved them all, but we hadn't. The main problem was that there wasn't enough airflow inside the box, and the greengrocers and fruit shop owners couldn't see what was going in the box without opening it. So then we changed the design again. So we went to this one, which has a nice little gap down the middle, and everyone can see what's going on because Hass avocados turn black when they're ripe, and the greengrocers could see what was going on in the box. They could get more airflow through, and you'll see we also put some holes in the box, which also meant that the fruit was more stable in a cool room. It didn't generate its own heat and start to ripen. So even though we thought we had solved the problem, we still then found out that it wasn't quite perfect. So it's taken a few years to perfect it, but we're there now. We've had feedback from other industry people saying how they see our packaging and how well it works, and we've even had people approach us because they want to use the idea themselves. So I guess that's sort of quite flattering in that way when people see your design. But it took quite a fair bit of time, probably about a year, to work through that situation. So and then also we're constantly evolving in that these trays usually have a plastic. Used to have a plastic sheet in here that had little cups to hold the fruit in place. And again, trying to move away from non-recyclable materials, we've now got a paper one that goes in here as well. So we're now zero plastic in regards to what goes to market. So anyway, so our packaging has been a great success for us, and has solved so many of the problems, and means that we're not reliant on anyone else, and we don't have to stop packing and picking fruit as we're going along. So anyway, moving on, what's next for us at the moment? Well, I think we're probably, like most farmers at the moment, dealing with climate change, dealing with variability, dealing with the cold weather that we have at the moment. I often say to people that farming, you're in business with Mother Nature, and so there is that unpredictability of what's possibly going to come. So, but at the moment, what we're trying to understand is how this cold weather that we're having affects our flowering, because we have fantastically healthy trees, but in the last few years, we haven't really been able to understand why we haven't set a crop. So we know from research that cold weather can affect the flowering. So what we've done this year is we've put these little guys out in the orchard. These are called a data logger. And what they do is they measure the temperature every 15 minutes and log that temperature. And then I come along, plug it into my laptop with a USB, can download the data, and now we actually have really good evidence as to what's going on with the temperature in the orchard. So if we see the temperature really dip during flowering and we didn't get a crop, we'll actually be able to quantify that. And not that we can do much about it, but it also just is going to explain to us that we understand that, in that particular season, the reason we didn't get a crop was cold weather. If we still set fruit, and a large amount of fruit, and it has been cold, that will then tell us that there's another problem in the orchard. And so what we're trying to do is possibly eliminate if temperature is an issue, and if temperature isn't an issue, we then have to go and look to something else in the orchard that might not quite be right. So so for us, technology is so much a part of it. We use all our irrigation systems are controlled via the internet on my iPad. I can turn water on. I can see how much water is being used. And as most farmers will tell you these days, that technology is really part of the production system. So anyway, that's pretty much covered what I was planning on speaking to today. So if there are any questions out there, more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. That was amazing. I learned so much during that session. Such a shame that you don't like avos, but that just means more for me, I guess. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll open up for questions, and what we'll do is we'll get any students that have questions to pop them in the chat if your teachers would like to type them in. For those schools that joined us a little bit later in the session, we just asked at the beginning that you pop the name of your school and your student numbers in the chat box, just so that we know who's with us and how long we've got to allow for Q&A sessions. So if anyone does have any questions, we would love to see them in the chat and we'll read them out. Oh, all right. One class would like to know if avos are grown in Tasmania.
Yes, they certainly are. I know of at least one plantation down there. So, if Tasmania gets warmer with global warming, as they're predicting, you might see more avocados being grown down there.
Awesome. All right. Mr. Grover's class would like to know, can farmers produce seedless avocados? Oh, do you know what? I've wondered this for a long time as well.
Not as far as I know, mainly because the seed is so much important part of the fruit. It is the tree trying to provide the next generation. So occasionally you might get the odd avocado that looks a bit misshapen and might not have a seed, but I haven't seen one yet. But you'd make a lot of money if you could figure it out.
Absolutely. All right, that might be my next mission after I've finished running Farmer Time sessions. How many avocados do you produce each year is a question from Mr. Grover.
Okay, our best year that we've ever had was just under 500,000 avocados. So we're quite small. I know that doesn't sound small, and I often joke that from where I live here in Shoreham, that if we were to put them end to end along the road, we could reach Melbourne. So that's one way to put it. But we didn't have any fruit last year at all because of this, of what we believe was that cold problem. There is a crop behind me at the moment that we're going to pick in February. And we're sort of quite unique as well. We end up with 2 crops on the tree at once. So we will have the crop that's flowering at the moment will be about the size of a golf ball when we're picking the bigger fruit from the previous year in February.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that they go from your place to Melbourne. That's huge. All right. So I've got a question that says, could you explain the difference in the root system to other plants again, please?
Okay. Avocados don't have a taproot structure. So if you imagine your typical sort of apple tree, which has a taproot and roots coming out, avocados have a fibrous mat of very fine roots that are pretty much mainly in the top 20 to 30 centimeters of the soil. They still will send some deeper roots down for stability, but because they've evolved from a rainforest where you have a decomposing leaf litter, which is providing nutrients, their root system is designed to live in that area and collect nutrients. So you can go underneath an avocado tree and sort of pull back the dead leaves and other material on the ground and see the roots even on the surface of the ground.
Amazing. So we've got a question that says, do you produce your own seeds for planting the next year's crop?
Well, avocado trees are perennial, so I always get that right, perennial, annual, whichever one it is that goes on and on and on. So once we plant a tree, so these trees behind me here are about 10 years old, and we don't need to replant them every year. We just keep getting a crop every year off the trees. But I have grown my own trees down here, but the majority of our trees come from nurseries.
Amazing. I didn't know that. There you go. So we've got a class that said that they missed the very beginning, so they just wanted to be reminded where where avocados are mainly found or native to.
Okay. Avocados have been traced back to 3 regions: Mexico, Guatemala, and the West Indies. So they've traced all the 3 races of avocados from those areas. And then between that, there's been interbreeding across that, which has ended up with us having the Hass avocado, which is the main commercial variety grown worldwide and also in Australia now.
Awesome. All right, we've got another question from Mr. Grover's class that says, do you use pesticides? And if so, which ones?
No, we're very lucky. One of the benefits of growing in this cooler environment is that we don't have the tropical pests. So we don't spray our trees for anything. We have no pests that directly attack our trees. The pests we do get sometimes is we get cockatoos who are bored, who will sit in a tree and just nip off some fruit. But as far as spraying pesticides or insecticides, we don't have to do that.
Awesome. All right, so I've got one from Annie Rose, who's my fellow Vic Ed officer, who asks, how are avocados pollinated?
Oh, that's a long question. We need about another half hour for that one. Basically, the tree, they're very inefficient at flowering. So they have hundreds of thousands of flowers on them. And you can't quite see, but off to my right here, we have some beehives that we've brought in this year to help with that. But the tree will flower over about a 30-day period. And over that time, each individual flower will open for a period of 2 days. And I always get this wrong, and I should really learn it, but the flower will open, and it depends if you're an A type or a B type, but the flower will open in the morning of the first day, one sex, and then in the afternoon of the following day, a different sex. And so what you need is to have male and female flowers open at the same time to get pollination. So that's it in a nutshell. Google it. It's still, we're still figuring a lot of pollination out. We know probably about 80% about how it happens, but as I said, for us, we know temperature is part of the mix for us. But it's making sure that you have flowers of male and female open at the same time, or insects that can hold on to the pollen to pollinate it later in the day. So that's probably about the quickest version I think I can do.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right. I've got a bit of feedback there. So the next question that we've got is, when the trees have finished producing avocados, what happens to them?
Well, it's just a continual process. So for us, our trees nearly always have avocados hanging on them the whole time. So, and we've got some trees that are 35 years old and still producing. So, and I've seen trees in South America that were over 100 years old, so, and still producing. So, as long as you look after them, they're going to keep feeding us.
That's awesome. All right, now we've got one more question for our live session, and then if schools have got any more questions, they're more than welcome to shoot us an email with those, and we can get back to you via email. So one more from Mr. Grover's class says, how many avocados can you transport at a time?
Okay, well, it all comes down to what you want to put them in. So we pick into a standard industry fruit bin. So depending on the size of the fruit, that can hold up to usually around 2,000 fruit, up to about 4,000 fruit. And then when they go to the to be packed in the at the pack house into trays, we generally put 160 trays to a pallet, and that weighs just under 1,000 kilos. And in those trays, you could have size 18, which are big fruit, or size 28. So roughly doing the maths in my head, you could end up with 4,000 to 5,000 fruit on one pallet going to market, or maybe about 2,000 of the bigger size.
Awesome. All right, sorry, one more quick one, and then we'll have to wrap her up. So what transport do you prefer to use for transporting the avos?
As in, well, what happens with our fruit is that we have special trailers. So we pick up these big white fruit bins, they're called Nelly bins, that we pick into. We pick them up take them to our processing site where they go into a cool room, and we'll stockpile that fruit for a couple of days, and then we'll process one day in the week. And then from there, once they're packed onto pallets, a semi-trailer will come and collect them and take them to Melbourne to the markets.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Steve. That was amazing and so informative. I learned loads, and I'm sure that everyone that tuned in did as well. I'd like to say a massive thank you to Bianca from Port Innovation for joining us today, and a huge, huge thank you to all of the students who were able to tune in and join us for this really special National Ag Week event. Now, if you would like to continue the celebrations of National Ag Week, jump onto the Produce It, Protect It website. We've got heaps of different lessons and activities around sustainable solutions around agriculture, tools and technologies in ag, and heaps of other fun different resources and pre-recorded farmer time activities to look at. If you haven't already popped your school name and class numbers in the chat, we would love to grab them off you so that we can send you a thank you Produce It, Protect It pack. All right. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. It's been fantastic to have you with us. Happy National Ag Week.
Bye. See you all.